President of the Board of Supervisors. Hey, Wendy, how are you? Good to see you. So my only commentary on this, which I'm sure is not going to be controversial at all, but we'll see how it goes, is that only in San Francisco can we replace a native who grew up in affordable housing, subsidized housing, government housing, with a wealthy man who grew up in Pacific Heights. Only in San Francisco is that a progressive value. So to that end, I welcome. Yeah, like I said, I'm sure that was going to be well received by everybody. To that end, London Breed.
Thank you, everybody. I'm excited to be here tonight. Move it up, man.
Just tape the bottom of that. Tape it.
I won't touch the microphone. So I am really excited to be here because I was really fortunate to be on the Board of Supervisors during the time when Scott Wiener served on the Board of Supervisors. And the money that, I guess the same rules about booing and hissing doesn't apply at Town Square like they do at the Board of Supervisors chamber. However, let me just say this. Scott Wiener, along with the leadership of Todd David, fought hard to make sure that this plaza is the community plaza it needed. They helped to raise the funds, and I was really honored to be very supportive during that time. And here we are, this amazing square that's an example of bringing communities together. And so thank you, Todd. Thank you to the Noe Valley Democratic Club. It is an honor to be here. And let me just start by saying, I never thought, as someone who grew up in this amazing city, that I would ever have the opportunity to serve on the Board of Supervisors, let alone run for mayor of the city that I've called home my entire life. It is really an honor. It is truly an honor and a privilege, one that I don't take lightly. I know what it feels like to grow up in a community that has been rocked by gun violence, held back by hopelessness and despair. And the reason why I ran for the Board of Supervisors is because I wanted to change our city for the better. I know that most of the time you have the typical politicians who push for policies that sound good, but those policies don't always work for people that they're intended to work for, because I know what it feels like to live through those policies and have them not work for my community. And so I'm here today running for supervisor because it is time that we change the voice of San Francisco. It is time that we have someone in San Francisco that understands from experience how we make those changes. As a member of the Board of Supervisors, I've pushed for creative policies like the neighborhood preference program, one that should have been in existence, one that should give people an opportunity to live in their communities when housing is built. And because of that policy, we have a real opportunity for folks to access affordable housing that gets built in their community. Now, someone asked the question about a housing for folks besides the BMR units. I led the way last year at the Board of Supervisors in helping to pass inclusionary affordable housing laws that is an income ladder, that is an opportunity for our teachers and our firefighters and others to actually qualify for some of the programs that we have, but we have to build housing for all. We have to have funding to build housing for all. So this June, we have a ballot measure that is going to provide a pipeline for housing for all. And that means affordable housing for low-income residents, navigation centers to help get our housing, our homeless individuals off the streets and into an opportunity to transition into permanent housing, small site acquisition money to purchase SRO properties, and more important, and also just as important, building more middle-income housing as well for those who need it throughout our city. We have so much work to do, and coming up with creative solutions to build more affordable housing for all income levels is really at the top of my agenda. It's why I pushed so hard to purchase the McDonald's site in my district at Stanyan and Haight. We're going to be able to build 120 to 160 low and middle income housing units for the residents in that community. But we know that there's still a challenge. We know that people are still struggling in this city, and we have to do a better job with making sure that we have navigation centers, making sure that we have housing ladders for people in this city. Dealing with the quality of life issue is important, and dealing with issues around homelessness and public safety and the things that this community cares about are important. When I became acting mayor, the first thing that I did was get out in the streets, have conversations with, sadly, some of our individuals who were living out on the streets in the tents, and just really trying to understand, what can we do better as a city? If we have an opportunity for you to go into a navigation center, if we have an opportunity, then we want you to take that opportunity. But we don't want to pressure you into doing something that you want to do, but leaving someone in tents on our streets, it's not humane, it's not okay, because it's a public health and a public safety issue, and we have to make sure that we have more opportunities to transition people off the streets into a housing ladder of permanent stability. So I plan to work on those particular issues as mayor. Public safety is another issue that is important to me. I mean, raise your hand if you have a car and it hasn't been broken into. Okay, like 5 people. It's happened to too many of our residents over and over. And, you know, like, there are people, especially in my community, they can't afford that $300 or what have you in terms of repairing it through the shop. I mean, that means the difference between them being able to go to work and not. And we have to do a better job. And let me tell you what I did at the Board of Supervisors yesterday. I passed a resolution supporting Scott Wiener's bill, SB 916, which is going to help us with prosecutions. Right now, you have to say you have to prove that your door is locked. And if someone breaks your window, that's just not enough to prosecute someone for these crimes. And so we are going to do a better job. If this bill passes, it will give the DA's office the ability to prosecute these particular cases. Because right now they're not being prosecuted because we have limitations in our laws, and we have to add more beat patrols to the streets. And more importantly, we have to also look at awareness and making people aware of these issues and keeping an eye on each other in our communities. It takes a lot of work to run this city. It takes a lot of collaboration to run this city. No one politician is going to be responsible for changing everything that happens in San Francisco. The way that we win the battles on housing and homelessness and public safety is by doing them together. This plaza didn't happen because of the mayor. This plaza happened because of the leadership of the city and the community working together to make it happen. And that is the kind of mayor that I plan to be. One who has an open door policy, who's here to work with residents, who's here to be a mayor for every San Franciscan that deserves to make sure that a mayor has their door open for them. I know what it feels like, again, to grow up in a community where people didn't want to come to where you live, when people just had, you know, basically made you feel like you didn't belong somewhere. And as mayor, I will never make you feel like you don't belong here in San Francisco. I don't care if you're rich, I don't care if you're poor, I don't care if you're in between. My job as mayor is to work with you collaboratively to get our most pressing issues solved today. And so I'm committed to doing this job and looking forward to a robust dialogue. There are many issues that we need to tackle, and I hope we can tackle them together. My name is London Breed, and I want to be your mayor.
So, okay, so London, there's going to be 10 minutes of question and answer. I'm more than happy to call on people for the question. But the one question I'm asking every candidate this evening is that before the untimely passing away of Mayor Ed Lee, he had an executive directive to build 5,000 units of housing every year, kind of in continuum. Do you support that?
So not only do I support that, I'm pushing to make sure that we build more housing using the modular system, which I'm sure you all have heard about, where we can build more housing faster. And we're not leaving our labor brothers and sisters behind. We have worked out an agreement that we are looking into building a factory here in San Francisco, so we have local jobs. We're building housing faster. That's a creative solution to trying to move forward towards not only Mayor Lee's goal, but we need to exceed that. Between 2010 and 2015, for every one household, we created 8 jobs. Where are all those people going to live? We have an obligation to do a better job with housing production, and that means responsibly dealing with the bureaucratic layers that exist that stop us from building more affordable housing faster.
This young lady.
Go ahead.
As mayor, you make sure that I don't have the fear of my friends being automatically taken away and me never seeing them again, being taken away by ICE, for no apparent reason, or their parents being taken away by ICE. Like, not only for my school, but for every single school in the community. Because everyone consistently has the fear of their parents for them being taken away and deported.
The question was, what will I do as mayor to protect our immigrant community? Because there are students that she attends school with who are worried about their parents being taken. And, you know, let me just say this. When Donald Trump became our president, I shouldn't even say his name because it just ruined my mood just by saying that. You know, one of the things we've had to do in San Francisco, sadly, we've gone back like 60 years fighting against his administration and the attack on our immigrant community. And it is not acceptable. I actually wrote a resolution denouncing his policies, denouncing him for coming after San Francisco and coming after our immigrant communities, denouncing him for all the terrible things that he tries to do to tear us apart. I've been a leader in this effort. We will continue to put the kind of funding necessary into legal defense and supportive services that make sure that our immigrant population seeks help without fear that has been imposed upon our city through this administration. We've spent over $16 million in some of those programs, and we just opened a location for families in the Bayview Hunters Point community when I was acting mayor. I'm committed to not only making sure that we have the support and the facilities necessary to help our immigrant population, who, by the way, they're San Franciscans too. They deserve protection too. They're a part of our communities. And so as mayor, I'm not afraid of Trump. As mayor, I'm not afraid of anybody. I'm willing to stand up and do everything I can to protect you and your friends and their families.
Talked about many important points here. Homelessness, affordable housing, safety, cleanliness. I haven't heard you talk about anything about affordable childcare for our younger citizens here in San Francisco, and how and what you might do to get thousands of children off the waiting list and into affordable and quality childcare.
Thank you. The question is, what will I do about affordable childcare and getting a lot of people off of the wait list? And actually, last year during the budget season, I was a part of the add-back process where we actually put an additional $5 million, which would help clear some of the names on the wait list. You know, we have a problem with affordable childcare in this city, not just for our low-income families, but also for our middle-income families. And so we have to do a better job of putting our money where our mouth is, because the other challenge is, where are those teachers going to live? Because that is one of the biggest issues for both public and private school in our city, is making sure that there's support, there's housing opportunities for the teachers who we expect to take care of our children. And so that is one of the things that I definitely care about, and will continue to provide the support necessary to make sure that all of our children, just like when you go to 5th grade and 6th grade and 7th grade, we have these public schools. It should be the same with childcare, so our families continue to get to work and know that their kids are being taken care of.
Any questions over here? Anyone? No? Yes.
Hello, Ms. Reed. You mentioned about the navigation centers, which I totally support, but you also mentioned while you were talking about, of course, you can't make people do something they don't want to. And my problem with that is, we are filled with our city is filled with people who are mentally ill and severely addicted. How can you say, and it seems to be the city policy, that we can't force people whose illnesses make them incapable of making life decisions for themselves, that we have to afford them to make their life decisions for themselves?
Thank you, thank you. The question is, what are we doing to help our mentally ill population? Because in many instances, they can't make decisions for themselves.
Or addicted people.
And people who have addictions. I am so happy that you asked that question, because I will be introducing legislation in a couple weeks that will actually, it will actually take, right now, what happens with the conservatorship program for people who have mental illness, they are, the process of the courts are happening through the district attorney's office. And so usually through the district attorney's office, it gives the impression that this is some sort of criminal element, when in fact, this is a public health issue. And so the legislation that I'm introducing is going to take the responsibility from the district attorney's office. It's going to put it in the hands of the city attorney's office. And the city attorney's office, its section where they work on conservatorship for children who need a guardian, who need support, it's going to be their responsibility to work through the court process to try and get people conserved and to try and get them the help and support that they need. And also, I'm excited, and I mean, this is like me announcing it in advance of, you know, when I plan to announce it, but we have over 40 new mental health stabilization beds opening up at St. Mary's. We're changing the department. Yes, you can clap for that, because I'm excited. And we're also changing who is responsible. Right now, Aging and Adult Services is responsible for mental health patients, the services and the support, and we're going to move that over to the Department of Public Health. So it's not just about legislation. It's a public health crisis. There are 3 things we're doing. It's a comprehensive plan in order to address what we know is a serious mental health crisis on our street. And I am so committed to this issue, because if that were me out on those streets, I would want someone to do everything they can to make sure I was getting the help and the support that I need.